It is a Quarterback Tuesday, something we're test driving here to see if it sticks, at least until we feel comfortable with the situations of all the local teams' quarterbacks. Like, we know them, we're aware of what they bring to the table. But from Bryce Young down to the college guys, there's a lot of question marks coming into this season. So there's a day set aside to make sure we're not ignoring the most important position on the field. Let's look towards Duke's quarterback, Darian Mensah. Darian Mensah, first of all, expensive, right? Depending on which reports you believe, anywhere from, $3 million and change per year in NIL to CBS says $4 million a year in NIL. Darian Mensah is a hired hand. It is a business deal for Duke. At least that's the way I'm looking at their relationship. He is a pro quarterback hired to do a job, right? Duke seems to want to operate like they're a mom and pop shop, right? Where they're asking once a player gets onto campus that you give them the commitment and, we'll help develop you in exchange for loyalty from your side to us, right? It's kind of like a family-owned business. And then quarterback is like the one part of their business they outsource to independent contractors. That seems to be the way they're deciding to operate. Right, it's the one part that they can't afford the factory to build, so they send that overseas. But everything else is assembled by people who their first name. Manny Diaz's defense will be good because it kind of always is. He's a good defensive mind, but also because they have good, loyal players that could have cashed in this offseason. Guys like Chandler. Why am I blanking on his last name? I've said it a million times. Rivers. Goodness gracious. Chandler Rivers, guys like Terry Moore in that secondary, guys like Trey Freeman, guys that we've talked to. Their defense will be solid. The outsourcing is we need somebody to run the show on the offense that will put up enough points to take advantage of our homegrown defense, to take advantage of a good offensive line that they put together. And sometimes it's good to know where you stand on those sorts of things. Darian Mensah said, right, his words, not mine, when he started looking around for options and his agent started calling around and seeing who was interested, he was surprised. Darian Mensah was surprised that Duke was near the top of the list of potential destinations. Do you know what I would guess? I'm not saying it was the final decision because we did talk to him about it, and he said Manny Diaz and the offensive scheme and everything were huge parts of his reasoning for choosing Duke. But do you know what I would guess, what I would wager was the thing that made him consider Duke? Dollars. Right, he saw the offer they made and went, well, shoot, I should talk to their coach, right? I should see if I like it there. And then the other priorities can come in. But it's sometimes, it's good to know where you stand. He loved Tulane, right? If you listen to what Darian Mensah says, he loved Tulane. Not only did he leave Tulane, he left and went to a team that is playing against Tulane this year. Duke is playing against his old team that he has openly said, I didn't want to have to leave, but, life-changing money is life-changing money. He didn't use those exact terms, but pretty much. That's kind of cold-blooded. So guess what, Duke? If he has a monster season, if he's all ACC, if he leads you to 10 wins, he might love Duke and be playing against you the next year. Because you're right. How they found you is how they'll leave you. That's the saying about relationships, right? If somebody cheats on their partner with you and then leaves their partner to date you, I don't know if you should be surprised if they cheat on you. How they found you is how they'll leave you. If he loved Tulane and left for better business somewhere else, even if he loves you, you shouldn't be surprised if he leaves for better business somewhere else. Not many guys leave Duke in the portal, but quarterback is something they obviously treat different. You can go find the Graham Bartons. You can go find the Jordan Moores. You can go find some guys that have been really good players over the last couple years. But guess what? Malik Murphy was on campus for a year. Then he transferred out. He's at Oregon State now. Quarterback's a little different. It's the one thing that they kind of outsource. And by the way, I don't think this is necessarily a bad way to handle business. I think every coach in a vacuum would say, I would like to build through players that we get on campus and we have a hand in developing and we get to know and we have relationships with, and we'd like to do a bulk of our production from guys that we know. But they also will acknowledge it's very difficult to have no holes in your roster with all guys that you kind of evaluate and bring in as high schoolers or bring in as youngsters and develop. It's very hard. Even Clemson learned that, and Clemson recruits at a ridiculously high level and resisted the transfer thing for a long time. Coming into this year, they looked at their edge rushers and said, we've got a couple NFL guys, but we also need depth, and they brought in some studs, one from Alabama, one from Purdue. It's hard to evaluate quarterbacks. It is much more difficult to evaluate quarterbacks when you get beyond the top 20 recruits in the country. Right, when the elite 11 quarterbacks, the ones that are super studs coming out of high school, there is an element of they have a certain physicality, they have a certain ability that you're comfortable with. But if you're picking from the best 3 stars you can find, right, those that have a family member that's already on campus or something like that, you got to have the connection. It might be easier to let Tulane find the diamond in the rough and then buy it off them. Meanwhile, you can do a good job evaluating linemen and corners and defensive front seven, and you build all that up and then go connect your quarterback elsewhere.
Just a side note, Tulane made it out pretty good in this deal. They got Jake Retzlaff from BYU to be their starting quarterback after the departure of Mensah. So I'm assuming everything is
that's a whole complicated
thumbs up with his situation
yes.
and everything.
And that's very difficult to predict.
In terms of the level of player, though, they made out decently in this.
I still
exchange.
think they'd rather have Mensah. But you're right. I mean, that's again, I don't want to go into all of the things that led to the BYU quarterback being available. But Duke might have their hands a little bit more full with Tulane than they thought when they took the quarterback away from him and had him on the schedule. Here's the thing with Darian Mensah. Okay, and this is Quarterback Tuesday. We're talking about Duke's quarterback, Darian Mensah, incoming transfer. I was wildly impressed with how he carried himself at ACC kickoff. I've talked about this a few times. He was my choice for the magnetic. We need to come up with a name for the award. At the end of every football and basketball kickoff and tip-off event, we pick one person who commanded the room.
He had the most aura.
Right? When he walked in, didn't matter who you were talking to, you naturally were like, what is going on over there? And it's happened a few times. Right, in my time going to ACC Media Days, and overwhelmingly they have good seasons. I'm not saying I know anything because I'm not the only one that noticed it, right? But he carried himself in a way that had presence. I do think that is something that Duke kind of needs, right? When you are a football team that is perennially put in the box that Duke is put into. Do you know how many games Duke has won the last 3 years? 9, 8, and 9. 3 different quarterbacks, 2 different coaches, different coordinators, different best players, different running backs. 9, 8, and 9. When I checked last week what their over-under was in win total, 6.5. When you're perennially put in that box that Duke is put into, which is, the little brother of the basketball school or whatever, the little brother of a couple other programs nearby, whatever, the stereotype, the reputation is, you need somebody with the presence. You need somebody with the command to get everybody to buy in. It's why under Riley Leonard, it felt like they were more dangerous than Malik Murphy, even though they won the same amount of games or even more with Malik Murphy than they did with Riley Leonard. But Riley had a bit of that presence, right? He was one of the picks coming out of ACC kickoff as a surprising, commanded the room guy. Had a little sparkle in his eye when the game was on the line. Meanwhile, Duke was losing games with Malik Murphy when they got 5 or 6 turnovers on defense. It was just a different beast. If Mensah can be more of that, I think it changes everything for him. I think it's worth the money because that's the new, I don't know, judge of talent evaluating in college, right? It used to be, okay, you got a 5-star, that player played well, great. You can really increase your team when you find the 3-star or the 2-star or the no-star that goes on to be all conference. Now it becomes, is every dollar you're spending bringing back more than $1 worth of value? If Mensah transforms the aura of Duke, it's worth the $3.5 or $4 million he's making. If he comes in and he's just like a run-of-the-mill average ACC quarterback, I don't know if it's worth all that cash. There is a certain floor for Duke this year because they have, a solid offensive line led by Brian Parker, a solid defense led by Terry Moore in the secondary. Like they have a certain floor. To get that ceiling raised, somebody's going to have to make everybody believe. And that's worth $4 million to me. It ain't my money. I wouldn't be paying $4 million for it, but that's mostly because I wouldn't be leaving the bank unless it's paying for a house, college education for my kids or something.